From the Warhammer Imperium magazine, collected short stories, narrated by J.H. Miniatures. At the request of Inquisitor Draxos, Heart of the Storm. Thought of the day. The justice of your actions is measured by the strength of your conviction. Location, Timea's Pride. The Timean system lies in the shadow of the Scarax Void, a small but unpredictable warp rift. Through this rent in reality, heretic Astartes of the Crimson Slaughter have invaded, slaying all in their path. From their lair deep within the warp, the bloodthirsty Crimson Slaughter have emerged to strike at the Imperium. In their path stand the Fulminators, a chapter of Primaris Space Marines. Beneath the spires of the Shrine World, Timea's Pride, loyalist and traitor clash in the midst of a violent storm. Above the soaring cathedrals of Timea's Pride, the heavens unleash their fury. Fork lightnings split the sky, illuminating the besieged city. Beneath the tempest, Captain Amator of the Fulminator's second company removed his helm, baring his flesh to the biting wind. Before him, silhouetted against the darkness, a tide of traitors surged forth through the eye of the storm. They were horrific to look upon, clad in crimson power armour, adorned with demonic horns and profane icons of the ruinous powers. These were the Chaos Space Marines of the Crimson Slaughter. Amator scowled. The sight of the foe had awakened a primal hatred within his heart. He despised these turncoats and traitors to the Imperium. There would be no mercy this day. The heretics advanced in a tide of howling, shrieking fury, the roar of their chain blades clearly audible even above the din of the storm. Beyond, towards the edge of the city, a trail of smoking, ruined buildings marked their passage. Amator drew his power sword and took a step forwards, levelling the tip of the blade towards the traitors. At that signal, the Space Marines at his side raised their weapons and began to fire, adding their own battle cries to the furor. Explosive bolt rounds slammed into the advancing Chaos Space Marines, blasting chunks from their Ceramite armour and felling several of the snarling heretics. Yet still they came, propelled by their own demonic madness, spitting unintelligible curses. Amator rushed forwards to meet their charge, the rain streaming down his face. First to meet him was a lumbering heretic. The traitor's helmet was covered in a layer of dried blood, its damaged vox filters emitting a stream of static and pain screams. The foe raised his power axe above his head and brought it down with all his might. The strike was swift despite its weight, and Amator barely avoided its arc. The snarling chain teeth roared through the air. Before his opponent could wheel to strike again, Amator thrust the tip of his power sword into the seal between the Chaos Space Marine's power armour and his helmet. A fountain of blood sprayed forth, and the Chaos Space Marine gargled through his hissing Vox unit before crashing backwards to the rain-slick ground. Before the foe struck the sodden earth, 3 more opponents rushed forwards, cutting their way through Amator's brothers and lashing out at him with their weapons. Atop his armour, his iron halo flickered and flashed, projecting a field of force that deflected his assailants' blows. They snarled in frustration and muttered to themselves as they closed in. 2 of the opponents bore chain axes and bolt pistols, their faces covered by leering, red-lensed helms. The third towered above his companions, his exposed head a mass of pallid flesh and puckered scars. His bloodshot eyes glared at Amator, and his face was twisted into an expression of wild, insane hatred. He uttered no words, merely snarling and spitting as he rushed forwards, flanked by his fellow warriors. Though their strikes were wild, the heretics still possessed the brutal strength and lightning speed of true Space Marines. For each blow that Amator caught on the energy-shrouded blade of his power sword, another pierced his guard. His iron halo flickered once more, projecting a force field that turned the weapon aside before it could bury itself in his flank. Amator fell back patiently, waiting for one of his opponents to overbalance or leave themselves open to a riposte. He did not have to wait long. One of the Chaos Space Marines launched an overhand strike from his chain axe. Seizing the opening, Amator hurled himself forwards under the falling chain axe, and he buried his blade into the chest of his foe. The second-helmed heretic paid no heed to his fallen brother, firing his bolt pistol at the captain and raining chain axe blows down on his power armour. Adamantine teeth ground through the left forearm of Amator's plate, shearing ceramite and ripping a gash into the flesh beneath. He drew backwards, pulling away from the snarl-toothed blade. Grimacing, he levelled his bolt pistol at the Chaos Space Marine's helm and squeezed the trigger. An explosive shot punched straight through the right lens of the heretic's helm and exploded within the traitor's skull. A gout of blood and gore splashed across Amator's blue armour. Then one remained, the bare-headed champion of the Dark Gods. His blood-flecked armour glistened in the downpour. Their eyes met, centuries of enmity reflected in each of their hate-filled stares. "Their voices call for slaughter. Only blood can silence them," the champion of chaos hissed. Amator scowled and raised his sword to meet the foe. "Only death may quell your madness, traitor," he growled and rushed forward. As the two titans clashed in a shower of sparks and grinding metal, a peal of thunder rolled across the fractured sky. "We are the Fulminators, forged during the Ultima founding. We are Primaris Space Marines all. We were named for the lightning storms of Mars, and we shall enter the eye of any tempest without fear. We serve the Emperor with all our being. Wherever the heretic raises his head, we shall descend like the lightning of the gods of old to smite him. Should Xenos dare to trespass upon the realm of mankind, we shall meet their incursion with sword and bolter. The blood of Guilliman runs in our veins, and his wisdom informs our strategy. Like all gene sons of the Primarch, we know no fear." Brother Julius, Fulminator's second company. The Crimson Slaughter were once a loyalist Space Marine chapter called the Crimson Sabres, who served the Imperium with great distinction for many centuries. The events that led to them to turn traitor are shrouded in mystery, but first signs of their fall can be traced back to their assault on the jungle cults of Eumidia. It appears that some form of warp-spawn madness consumed the entire chapter. The madness that afflicts the Crimson Slaughter remains a mystery. What is known for certain, however, is that they are beyond salvation and must be destroyed, lest they bring ruin to more of the Imperium's worlds. Inquisitor O'Dear, Ordo Hereticus. Thought for the day: throw your hopes into the fire. Let hatred take their place. And there you go. So that's the second story. So another 29 to go. I think what stands out to me is that, considering the contents of the Warhammer Imperium magazine from the second or third issue when this story was featured, they didn't just stick to Space Marines and Necrons or start dabbling with Sisters of Battle or anything like that. They started focusing on the actual wider conflict of the 41st millennium. The first issue focusing on the Necrons makes sense because that's what the magazine is selling with, Space Marines and Necrons. But at the end of the day, 40k is made up of more than just those two factions. And although here we're only seeing Chaos enter the scene and still focusing on the Ultramarines or a successor chapter thereof, the reality is Chaos and Traitor Space Marines play a massive part in the 40k storyline and the 30k storyline. So it was good to look back on it and see that they actually featured them, to be fair. But no, not a bad little story. Again, I'm still learning how to really do this voice acting, narrating thing. And again, it's going to be rough for the first few because I'm sort of recording them as I go, really. There's no, the only way to get better at this is to practice. And at least these initial stories are short. They're all double-sided pages, so nice and quick. I want to say it's story 5. No, is it story 6? Yeah, story 6 when you actually get multiple page carrying on stories. So at least until then, these are quick and painless. So if you do enjoy them, great. If you don't enjoy them, you can just skip straight on until you get to the good ones, as it were. All right, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video, and goodbye.